Hi, everyone. This is Cheryl Skolage. I'm here with Kelly Maynard. She's a certified health coach. I'm so excited to have her. And we're here with our first of a series of Lipedema Lite Bites. And so we're hoping that these are going to be nice, short little videos just to give you a little nugget of information. And our first one is going to be on the definition of lipedema. I'll scroll up right here a little bit. So thanks for joining, everyone. I'm Cheryl Skolage, Lipedema Diva. Kelly, you want to say a little bit?
I'm Kelly Maynard with Wild Heart Wellness, and I'm so excited to be joining Cheryl to do a few short educational videos all about lipedema, help raise awareness and help people understand a little bit more about it.
Great. Okay, so definition of lipedema. Lip is fat and edema is swelling. And so that's where we get the word lipedema. Of course, everyone's always confusing it with tons of other words like lipidemia, and this isn't lipidemia. It's not lymphedema. We're talking about lip edema, which is swelling of the fat.
And the next point is Dr. Hertz has just recently in June come out with some new information categorizing lipedema as a connective tissue disorder. Adipose tissue is a type of connective tissue disorder, and before this people were more saying it's just a fat disorder. There's something wrong with your fat that they couldn't quite understand, but this gives a lot of new insight into what's going on with the body and why maybe some of the connective tissue therapies are really proving to be helpful for lipedema.
And you have a lot of experience with that type of therapy to try to improve the connective tissue. Isn't that right?
I do. And I think these new sort of definitions that we're hearing about through the research explains a little bit more about the pain, because nobody really understands why your fat is painful. That's one of the key things that some people have with lipedema, which is right under the next point that you have up there.
Right. So lipedema is also called painful fat syndrome or tree trunk leg syndrome. So there's a lot of different jargon words out there. We're, I think, trying to get everyone to, just kind of call it lipedema, of course. But one of the first things a lot of people are Googling out there is either I have painful fat or I have tree trunk legs. So, those types of definitions are quite useful for the people who don't even realize that they have lipedema, which is quite a problem that we'll be getting into in additional videos in the future, I'm sure.
Yeah. So our next point is that it can be inherited, and they found a link between generations of women, even sometimes passed down through your father's side, whereas men don't usually show signs of lipedema. If you look on your father's side, maybe his mother or his grandmother, you'll find that it's passed through in families. And a lot of women that I've talked to have said when they spent time with their grandmother or their aunt or someone, they noticed this column-shaped legs in their grandma or their aunt or their mother. So they are aware that something's different about the legs in their family, but maybe they don't have a name for it.
Right. And as you were saying, it primarily affects women. There's very few men that have been diagnosed with it. There's a lot of speculation, I think, among some of the lipedema ladies that perhaps their cousin or brother perhaps have it as well. In fact, I'm pretty sure that a couple of my cousins who are male have the disease, but there's very few who are currently diagnosed.
That's true. I think it's important to look at maybe your family, even people who had unexplained pain or maybe an oddly shaped body as you're looking at, could this be something that's going on with me? Because it's very recent that women have been able to get a diagnosis. And even today, some women find it almost impossible to find a doctor who knows anything about it. So I think that might be a key as we're looking at what could be going on with our bodies, is to look at your family history, the women in your family, and maybe even a few of the men in your family.
Yeah, I'm nearly positive that it came from my father's side. So if I look at my grandmother from my dad's side, I can kind of see that classic lipedema shape. Must have been really hard for my mom. Must have been kind of weird to have a daughter with that shape.
I think that's true. I mean, I think it's hard for moms who then have daughters who they can't explain what's going on or really help them with the things that are going on with their bodies. But also women who have lipedema who realize their daughters have it. So I think both sides of that dynamic with your family are really important to look at. And maybe we could help the next generation by noticing some of these patterns that are going on with how we store fat and these odd things that happen with our fat, like that it's painful or hurts to touch or with pressure.
And one of the last points that we have up here is that it's a combination of fibrosis and edema. And this is part of that kind of recent understanding about lipedema, that we have the edema and the swelling, and that ends up becoming almost a vicious cycle, in that inflammation causes fibrosis, or basically the fat cells start to scar and become problematic, and that becomes very difficult for the body to remove and get rid of that lipedema fat.
Yes.
So a little bit about connective tissue. Connective tissue supports, protects, and gives structure to other tissues and organs in the body, and stores the fat. Connective tissue helps to move nutrients and other substances between tissues and organs, and helps to repair damaged tissue. And since our lipedema fat is kind of damaged, it's kind of difficult for that repair to happen in those areas.
It is. And one of the things about fibrosis is that the connective tissue, rather than the fluid in all your cells having a normal fluid exchange, it gets kind of trapped and turns into a weird gel. And then the toxins in your cells and the fluid exchange in your cells doesn't happen. So it really does make it difficult for the good stuff to get in, the bad stuff to get out. And that increases the fibrosis. And fibrosis is just when those tissues do not heal correctly and they thicken. So I think understanding this connective tissue part of it and is very crucial to a lot of women, and figuring out how through nutrition and different therapies, how we can help our connective tissue be healthier.
Good point. Just a picture of the lipedema nodule. So this is that fibrotic tissue. They actually form these nodules. And this particular picture is from Total Lipedema Care. They shared this on social media, and so wanted to share that with all of you as well. But those nodules actually are very hard and very difficult to break down.
Yes, and I think that's one reason women can, sometimes they feel weird bumps under their skin. That's what it is. These hard, almost impossible to break down hunks of tissue that can't be lost through normal means.
Just a couple quick things on some common questions when lipedema and lipoedema. So whether you're in the US or the UK or Australia, and even other parts of the world, there's some additional spellings as well. So earlier we were talking about how there's many different diseases that are all confused because of the sound. Well, these two spellings are actually the same thing. So if you see these, we're talking about the same thing.
Yes. And as you also said earlier, there's a lot of confusion with the sound of the word. So lymphedema and lipedemia are not the same condition. So you need to look for that. The beginning of the word is not lymph, it's lip, because lymphedema has to do with your lymph system rather than lipedema. And lipedemia is actually a condition with your heart. And I've heard a lot of ladies say, when they said the word lipedema to a doctor, they got sent to a cardiologist because of the confusion. So sometimes it might be helpful to get your spelling down for whichever part of the world you're in, and maybe have that spelling ready for the doctor who's not aware of what you're trying to explain to him or her.
So there are 5 types and 3 stages for lipedema. And we're going to be going through all of those in much more detail in other trainings. But there are types and stages. So when you're diagnosed, if you are ever diagnosed, I know that's sometimes difficult to get a diagnosis, but they will tell you what type you are, and you can be multiple types, and they will tell you what stage you're in.
Right. And I think it's important. There's a lot of confusion about types and stages, and there's a ton of information on the internet and a lot of great graphics where makes it a lot easier to understand the difference between the types and the stages. Types where the body is affected, and stages how much the disease has progressed.
Great. So bottom line, I know I get asked all the time, well, is this real? Is it an internet disease? Well, it really is real. Dr. Herbst and a lot of the other researchers have done a lot of research in the past number of years. Lipedema was first described in the 1950s, but it's been very recent that a lot of research has happened, and they are finding differences between lipedema and obesity, lipedema and lymphedema, lipedema and the normal population. So it's not just an internet disease. It really is a disease that is estimated to affect over 10% of all women worldwide. And so that's a huge number. I don't think people really realize just how large of a number this is to be a disease that's being just dismissed.
That's true. And I think we go into a doctor with the hopes that if you describe your symptoms and you say, I really think this might be what I have, that they will have at least heard of it. But you and I both have heard from so many women that say the doctor just dismissed them and said, oh, that's just something you read, and that can't really be what's affecting you. Just go home and cut your calories and exercise, and you'll see that this is not what you think. That's just all in your head. You just hope that you're not just fat. But we know that's not true.
Yeah, it's not. I really am passionate about making sure that women who have this disease aren't continuing to cut their calories. And it's basically just the opposite information, medical advice that they're supposed to be getting. Cutting calories and aerobic exercise is not effective for lipedema. And so we need to get the stage 1 women, the ones who are very early in the disease, we need to get them diagnosed early so that they can start the correct medical treatments and make sure that they don't progress so that they don't lose their mobility.
Yes, that's important. And I'm totally on board with that. It's very hard, and sometimes I think because you've been told so often to cut calories.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have an illness and you cut calories so drastically, it does not give your body a chance to heal. And we need to help our bodies, our connective tissue heal. We need to give our bodies more nutrition when we have some sort of disease, rather than just keep cutting calories. And obviously cutting calories from the thousands of women in this group that you started, and I'm helping you as an admin. How many women have said, I cut all the calories I could and I did not lose any weight?
Yep. Yep.
It doesn't
We
work.
hear it. It really doesn't. We hear it every day, don't we?
We do.
Okay. And this is the last slide for this particular training. 10% of women, that's really huge. Someone who has lipedema. So look at these beautiful ladies on here. And I'm sure you're going to recognize someone who, and a neighbor, someone down the street. Think of your group of friends. This disease affects a lot of women worldwide.
It does. And one thing I love about this graphic that you put together is lipedema is not one shape and one size. There are women who carry a lot of extra weight, and there are women who don't appear to carry much extra weight at all. And lipedema is not about the number on the scale. Lipedema is about unhealthy tissue and your body doing some very weird things that are not normal in your adipose tissue. So I think we need to reframe how we think about lipedema. It's not just a fat disease where you are obese or you are overweight.
That is so well said. And I think this is probably a good place to end, since that's such a perfect way to sum everything up. So thank you so much for your time, Kelly. We're hoping to do this and give you some little lipedema bites of information over time. So I hope this was helpful to everyone. Drop us a like or a little heart in comments and let us know how much you liked this video. Have a great day.